Right now, hey-ho, let's go to the left coast where we find Mr. Dave Workman, the Seattle Gun Rights Examiner. Dave, how you doing tonight, sir?
Well, I'm just sneaking by right now, Cam.
Listen,
How are you?
You know what? I'm good, and I'm very glad to see Representative Issa and Senator Grassley with another letter to the Attorney General. This time, the focus is not on Fast and Furious. Now, apparently, the scope of the congressional investigation has expanded to another state, the state of Texas, where both Representative Issa and Senator Grassley allege that there were more gun-walking operations apparently taking place.
Well, this is becoming more fascinating all the time, and you and I have talked about this before. This is not now an excusable operation that they can say was contained to Arizona and was just the work of those goofballs down in Phoenix, because now it appears that the ATF actively engaged in the same kind of investigative techniques in the state of Texas, watching known suspects traffic in firearms. This guy that I wrote about today, they knew that he was under indictment from a case clear back in 2006.
Right.
And so they knew that this gentleman could not legally take possession of a firearm, and yet they watched him do it. And a few months later, this gun shows up at the murder scene where Jaime Zapata was ambushed and killed down in Mexico.
Yeah, and so, and again, apparently a warrant was not signed out for this guy until the day before this murder of Agent Zapata took place.
Yeah, and I suppose there's all kinds of excuses for that sort of thing, but to tell you the truth, I've got several readers who are police officers or retired police officers, and almost universally they just scratch their heads wondering, oh, wait a minute. If they knew this guy was doing this sort of stuff, why didn't they pop him? That's what I'd have done. And I've heard that more than once from a reader or two, and it leaves me scratching my head.
Well, yeah, as I think it should. I got to ask you, Dave, how important do you think it is that now apparently we're not just talking about Operation Fast and Furious. We're not just talking about Phoenix, Arizona. We're talking about operations, and apparently more than one in the state of Texas. There were two guns connected to Agent Zapata's murder,
right,
that apparently were sold to individuals who were under ATF surveillance. One of the excuses the Obama administration has given all along is that, look, Fast and Furious just came from these low-level staffers who dreamt up this idea in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, now if you've got not one but perhaps two more cases running contemporaneously from other field offices, that really tends to cast some doubt on the administration's alleged creation of this plan.
Well, I really feel that this new revelation here establishes firmly that this is a pattern of investigative behavior that occurred under the Obama Holder Justice Department. We already know from recent revelations that on the day that a letter was sent to Senator Grassley last year, absolutely denying that the ATF had ever consciously allowed guns to walk, Lanny Brewer was down in Mexico promoting the idea of, gee, maybe we ought to let some guns walk and see what we can dig up on this. So you can't have this both ways. And not only myself, but some of the other writers, the journalists who've been digging into this thing, we're all kind of sitting back waiting for the next shoe to drop, because if this is a pattern of investigative behavior, we know now that this is just not isolated to the ATF and maybe a local office of the U.S. Attorney. This has got to go all the way up to the top. Because you can't just launch independent operations like that
Right.
without somebody in D.C. knowing about it.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, again, if we're to believe the Obama administration, then it still got worse for them because we now have this picture painted of an agency that has absolutely no supervision. The head of the criminal division of the Department of Justice is apparently completely ignorant of what's going on at the ATF. And again, this is the best case scenario. This is what the administration would have us believe, that nobody's watching their employees.
Well, frankly, I'll tell you what this suggests to me, and it has taken me a little while to get to this point because, journalists are supposed to be skeptical. But quite frankly, you've got one of two choices. Either Eric Holder, Lanny Brewer, and the rest of those guys in D.C. are absolutely asleep at the wheel, or they engaged in behavior that they knew was wrong, and they've spent the last year trying to cover it all up because they got caught and somebody got killed. Now, it's a coin toss right now which way this is going to go, whether they have to admit publicly that, yeah, we're a bunch of morons, or, yeah, we knew we were doing this, we just didn't want to get caught.
Right.
And I think that Issa and Grassley are almost to the point where this is going to break wide open on somebody. They're asking the right questions. They've got information that you can tell from the nature and the tone of the questions that they're asking in their letters to Holder. They know what they're looking for. They just need, for the purposes of crossing all the T's and dotting the I's, they need for the Justice Department to give them the documents that they already know exist. Then they're going to nail somebody. I'm convinced of that. We just got to wait and see who gets nailed.
Right. Well, and to that end, I know that there is, I think, growing frustration among folks who've been watching this case for over a year to get some sort of resolution. But, again, it's not really up to Representative Issa. It's not really up to Senator Grassley. A lot of this is up to the Obama administration digging in their heels, delaying handing over these documents. This story, look, Dave, if they had cooperated from the get-go, this story would have been over with probably months ago.
Oh, yeah, I'd be writing about something else. I mean, because a story like this only lasts as long as people try to cover it up. We learned that in Watergate. If Dick Nixon had told the truth within weeks of when the Watergate burglars got popped, he would have finished out his presidency. The bad guys would have gone to jail, and by now people would have forgotten it. But they haven't forgotten. You mentioned Watergate, and suddenly everybody thinks, "Oh my God, there's a presidential scandal. It's the scandal that brought down the Nixon administration." This is the same kind of thing. The cover-up is always worse than the crime. That just seems to escape people in D.C. these days. And we've watched this for now 12 and a half months, at least, that I've been writing about it. That's a long time to follow a story. 12 and a half months. It's ridiculous to me, and very frustrating, like you said, that the administration hasn't just said, well, okay, let's turn over these documents. We got an election coming up. Let's get this behind us. But no, they've circled the wagons on this thing. And the tighter they circle the wagons, the more convinced that people are getting that there really is something they're trying to cover up and trying to hide. It's just a matter of finding out what it is. And you mentioned something else that is the real problem that people don't seem to understand.
Yeah.
I see this stuff on the internet. Oh, I'm disappointed in Issa. I'm disappointed in Grassley because they don't go after a Holder for contempt, yada, yada, yada. Well, you know what? They have to go through the Justice Department to work those contempt proceedings. And guess what? Holder runs the Justice Department.
Right.
It's like walk up to somebody, would you arrest yourself? No, I don't think so. Not this week. So I think what is going to have to happen, and I don't want to be practicing politics here necessarily, but what is going to have to happen if people want this thing resolved and somebody held legally accountable, we're going to have a change in the administration in Washington, D.C. in November, a new attorney general, somebody who's going to go after these guys and just say, look, you people broke the law, and you're going to be held accountable for that.
And, Dave, I wonder, Wayne LaPierre and others have called for a special prosecutor for months now. I know Representative Issa has said one of the things that he wants to do is to try to put as much information out there publicly before a special prosecutor would be appointed, which, again, would come from the Obama administration. They would have to be the ones to appoint this. So, in the 60 seconds or so that we have left, the Obama administration has the decision to make in an election year. Do you just try to stall and withhold these documents as long as you can and hope you can push it off past November? Do you name a special prosecutor? Because you can't name a special prosecutor and expect to have that investigation wrapped up before Election Day. So you don't want to have that hanging out there. We may see a political calculation to just go ahead and keep obfuscating and hope for the best from this administration.
Well, I think you're right. I think that's what's going on. You look at the poll numbers now, and this presidential election is wide open. A lot of people are thinking that Obama's going to get reelected. He's going to spend another 4 years. If he does win the election in November, Darrell Issa and Chuck Grassley can pound their heads against brick walls. He's not going to throw Eric Holder under the bus. He's just not going to do it, because if Holder goes down, there are other people who are going to take a fall too. And I just don't see that happening with this administration. These guys are all real tight-knit. They're good buds. They all have kind of a Chicago connection. And, we're just at that point where if he gets reelected, that's it,
Yeah. Well, Dave, listen, I know we're going to be talking plenty of times between now and Election Day. Appreciate you coming on the program tonight, sir, and we'll do this again very soon.